Grant me peace, Lord, for tomorrow is too much to bear. At first glance, this petition feels deeply honest. You acknowledge life's pressures, the deadlines you face, the relationships that demand your energy, the uncertainties looming on the horizon. Admitting your limitations feels like humility. Asking for strength seems reasonable. Yet beneath that humility lies a psychological mechanism that quietly programs your mind for worry. During the twilight phase between wakefulness and sleep, your brain continues to simulate potential futures. Neuroscientific studies reveal that mental rehearsal in this liminal state triggers the same neural circuits as real experiences, releasing cortisol and other stress hormones. When you pray, "Tomorrow is too much to bear," you are effectively writing the script for a suspenseful thriller in your mind. The curtain rises on a stage where your worst fears play out on an endless loop, robbing you of restorative rest. Imagine your mind as a darkened theater, where, instead of gentle moonlight, each whisper of dread summons a spotlight on fear. You lie back in your seat, your body yearning for calm, while the drama of anxiety unfolds scene after scene. The effect is cumulative. Night after night, your brain becomes conditioned to expect chaos rather than calm, and you wake not refreshed but braced against a storm that was rehearsed in the dark. A practical example can bring this to life. A trauma. Counselor I interviewed shared that many of her clients, despite exhaustive daytime therapy, continued to experience insomnia. In the course of treatment, their maladaptive coping strategies emerged. One such strategy was the nightly prayer for relief from tomorrow's burdens, which inadvertently rehearsed those burdens instead of releasing them. Only when clients were guided to reframe their prayer, shifting from "tomorrow is too much" to "grant me serenity to face whatever tomorrow brings," did they begin to reclaim peaceful sleep. The subtle change redirected their mental rehearsal from a catastrophe script to a narrative of resilience. Grant me serenity to embrace each moment of tomorrow with courage and trust. This alternative planting directs your mind toward acceptance and readiness rather than dread, transforming your inner theater into a sanctuary of calm anticipation. Up next, you'll discover why the prayer for blanket forgiveness, uttered in hopes of mercy, can act like a spiritual anesthetic that deadens your inner moral radar. Second forbidden prayer. Numbing your conscience. Forgive me for all my sins. This plea is appealing in its simplicity. It covers every misstep without the awkwardness of listing specifics. You may feel that the heart of mercy lies in sweeping compassion, that God's grace is boundless and requires no detailed confession. Yet this universal absolution bypasses a critical step, the naming of particular faults. Without that naming, your conscience, the inner voice that warns you when you stray, loses its clarity. Think of your character as a multi-track recording, where each track represents an aspect of moral life: patience, kindness, generosity, honesty, humility. If you press a universal mute button, you silence all tracks at once. You remove the static of guilt, true, but you also eliminate the feedback that tells you which track needs adjustment. Transformative growth arises from discernment, identifying the specific attitudes or actions that require change. In the discipline of the Ignatian exam, practitioners spend time each evening reviewing their day in meticulous detail. They celebrate moments of joy, identify instances of failure, and seek insight into the root causes of each. This intentional reflection awakens the conscience and lays the groundwork for deliberate growth. In contrast, the blanket plea for forgiveness may leave the soul spiritually anesthetized, lulled into a false sense of moral security. A relevant anecdote involves a community of volunteers in a rehabilitation center. Their director noticed that, despite rigorous trainings, several volunteers repeated the same behavioral missteps: impatience with clients, lapses in confidentiality, moments of unjust judgment. At a retreat, they were encouraged to replace their nightly, generic pleas for mercy with a targeted practice. naming one specific mistake each evening and asking for insight into why it occurred. Over the course of weeks, volunteers reported heightened self-awareness and a deeper sense of accountability. They no longer slept through the night feeling vaguely absolved. Instead, they awoke with focused intentions for improvement. Identify one specific thought, word, or action that troubled you today. Pray. Lord, forgive me for that specific fault and grant me wisdom to understand its root. This practice revives the conscience, replacing anesthesia with illumination, and dynamic growth in place of stagnant absolution. And now, the final. Petition, one that promises divine shelter, but risks luring you into a state of passive spiritual slumber. Third forbidden prayer, lulling into complacency. Protect me while I sleep. I'm safe in your hands. There is profound comfort in imagining yourself cocooned by divine protection. In a world rife with tangible dangers and unseen threats, this prayer feels like an impenetrable fortress. Yet absolute assurance can paradoxically breed complacency. If you believe yourself invulnerable, why maintain gratitude? Why remain vigilant? Why pursue virtues that require effort and sacrifice? Visualize reclining in a hammock suspended over a river. Confident in the hammock's strength, you drift into a deep slumber, ignoring the slow erosion of the supports beneath you. By the time you awaken, you may find yourself submerged, the illusion of safety shattered. Similarly, if your nightly prayer assures invincibility, you may abandon the spiritual hammock checks, disciplines like gratitude journaling, communal, service, and accountability that keep your soul buoyant and alert. Monastic traditions have long recognized this dynamic. In many orders, prayers for protection are deliberately paired with ascetic practices, physical fasting, manual labor, extended periods of silent reflection. These disciplines serve as counterweights, preventing the believer from slipping into a mere expectation of grace. Instead, they foster a lived partnership between divine shelter and personal responsibility. A case in point, a seasoned monk confessed that for years he ended each day with the prayer, "I rest in your protection." Over time, he noticed his spiritual vitality waning. He lost the fervor that once drove his prayer vigils and acts of charity, assuming that protection meant there was no further need for effort. When he reintroduced a reflective line to his invocation, "Guard me as I rest and inspire in me the resolve to serve with love," he experienced a rekindling of zeal. The additional clause transformed passive refuge into active engagement, reminding him that protection is not a solo guarantee, but a collaborative journey. Watch over me as I rest, and kindle in my heart the resolve to live each day in gratitude, service, and love. This formulation retains the comfort of divine shelter while reactivating the disciplines that keep the spirit awake and responsive. After embracing this final insight, your approach to nightly prayer and to the dawn's first light will irrevocably change. In this extended journey through the core content, you've encountered 3 common bedtime petitions, each carrying an undercurrent that can subvert the very comfort, growth, and vigilance they promise. Tomorrow is too much to bear. Rehearses dread instead of granting rest. Forgive me for all my sins. Mutes your conscience instead of sharpening it. I'm safe in your hands. Lulls you into passivity instead of inspiring active faith. By understanding the hidden mechanics of each prayer, and by adopting their reframed alternatives, you can transform your nightly devotions into seeds of genuine serenity, moral clarity, and energized engagement. Sleep not as one who drifts aimlessly, but as one who rests fully, awakened in spirit even as your body finds its needed pause. As the night deepens and you prepare to close your eyes once more, remember this. Words are not neutral. They carry power, shaping your mind and heart in ways both seen and unseen. The petitions you utter in the dark are the scripts your subconscious rehearses. They set the tone for the dreams you dream and the moods you carry into the waking day. Tonight, you've seen how a slight shift in phrasing can uproot anxiety, awaken conscience, and reignite active faith. Change, tomorrow is too much to bear, to a plea for serenity and courage. Replace, forgive me for all my sins, with a focused confession that names one specific struggle at a time. Transform, I'm safe, in your hands into a partnership prayer that asks for resolve to live in gratitude and service. Now, as you utter your nightly words, may you choose seeds that bear a harvest of peace, insight, and purpose. Rest deeply, but let your spirit remain alert, awake to the possibilities that dawn will bring.